Parliament unanimously passed the Victims of Sexual Violence Bill last night, introducing major changes to how the justice system handles sex offences. Under the new law, adults convicted of sexual offences can no longer be granted permanent name suppression unless the victim agrees. Previously, a victim's view only had to be taken into account by the court. The ban also bans the cross-examination of children under 12 about whether they consented to sex, making it clear in law that young children cannot consent to abuse. Justice Minister Paul Goldsmith and Police Minister Mark Mitchell said these reforms will place victims at the heart of the justice system. The law also expands automatic name suppression to victims of all sexual crimes, including offences involving intimate visual recordings. Louise Parsons is from the Sensible Sentencing Trust, and it's my pleasure to welcome her to the show. Good afternoon, Louise.
Hi, Leah.
Lovely to talk to you again. The great news with this bill, taking away permanent name suppression for adult sex offenders unless the victim agrees. Louise, how long was the Trust and victims, how long have you been calling for this?
Well, we started 20 years ago, and when we started, there was no voice for victims. So, we've seen different governments over those years. Remembering we've only recently relaunched. We kind of went into hiatus for a wee while there. We've been calling for this, to have the victims at the forefront for 20 years, basically, to give them a voice. They never had a voice before the Sensible Sentencing came along. We were the largest victims advocacy group ever seen in New Zealand for violent crime, etc. So this is major. We're really pleased about this.
Why has name suppression been such a barrier for victims wanting justice? What have you heard from survivors about this over the years?
I think it's the judicial system that is the problem, because this legislation is made, and we have name suppression. But what happens is the judges get hold of it and they skew it, and they always skew it in favour of the offender. So suddenly we've got offenders having this law to their advantage. So it was never intended to protect the identity of offenders, especially sex offenders. It was to protect the rights of the victims.
What was their thinking, Louise? You've had a long time to obviously to be there on the ground and see this. What was the judiciary thinking? What were the judges thinking? If this person was named, it would ruin their life. What was the thinking, do you think?
Yeah, I don't know if it's that simple. Because I don't think we can look at it as maybe was with this. This is what SST is all about. Take it out of the hands of the judge's discretion.
Yeah.
Pass a law like this where there is no discretion. This makes perfect sense to us, because there's so many other legislations like this where the judges can take it and manipulate it, because they are soft. They are soft on crime. Their whole thing is to let them out. The revolving door of the justice system. The cops pick them up, they take them to court, put them through the court, and the judges churn them out. So, and this is the problem with the New Zealand judicial system. So this is great news for us today. It's a massive victory, and I just have to commend the entire government for this one. I found it interesting though when I was listening at the news when the Green Party made a comment. And they were the ones stating that, it's about time that the coalition put their money where their mouth is and invested in crime prevention. Now, this is the same party that I was talking about with you not that long ago, who wanted to defund the police. That's right. Put your money where your mouth is. Like, really,
I know.
It kind of blew my buzz.
Look, they're on another plane.
They don't want cops on the beat. How's that?
That's right. And they also think that most people in jail are there because they've got ADHD. So, not that they've done heinous crimes. It's bonkers.
There you go. And that's another good point, because there's people that aren't in jail that are sitting on home D. Again, that legislation was not for putting serious criminals to let them languish at home. That was for not non-violent crime. But again, it's been watered down.
Some victims may still choose to keep names suppressed, though, won't they, Louise? Do you support that flexibility?
Absolutely, 100%. It should be totally victim-led.
Yeah,
Totally,
what
100%
they want to
victim-led.
do.
And, when we first came out on the scene, the anomalies, I mean, I can't even begin to tell you how skewed the justice system was. You've got your balance of the justice scales, and it was so weighted in the offenders to their advantage.
Side.
And we've made a lot of changes over the years to try and get that back, and there have been some really significant changes to give the victims a voice.
Yeah.
So many. This is an important change.
This is important too, Louise. The bill also bans questioning under 12-year-olds about whether they consented to sex. It's absolutely abhorrent to think that such questioning was ever allowed.
You've got to sit in the courtroom for a day or two and just see. You think you're sitting on another planet. I mean, you read that it's changing. You think, what? That was actually there in the first place.
Yes.
I mean, there's a long way to go with that yet. I think not so much this because it's changed. It's such a good change. But yeah, to think that they were questioned like that is just, I can't. It defies logic, doesn't it?
I think this is. I mean, one of the big things, obviously that I look at this change, and I think it's designed to give the victims more control. And I mean, explain how really important that is, especially when you're having to go through the traumatic. You've already gone through that, but now you've got to sit through a traumatic court process.
Well, there's that, and that's, I mean, unimaginably hard. But then you've got the sentencing, and something we learnt over the years, especially with murder and horrific crimes like sex offending, until justice is served, it's very hard for people to move on. So getting justice against the perpetrator is really important for victims to be able to actually move on with their lives. So, I can't say that enough. It's a really, really important part of their growth, their futures. Because you imagine, for example, you've been through this horrific ordeal. You go to the justice system. You're almost made out to be part of the problem why you got offended against in the first place, and then the perpetrator gets let out or gets let off or gets name suppression, and you don't get a say in that. So you're being re-victimized again and again. So and again, that other point about getting justice, give them a decent sentence, and that allows the victim to move on with their life because they feel like they've been validated, they've been heard, they can move on. It's really important.
So do you think these changes in, Louise, will help victims come forward knowing that they can speak out if they choose to?
I hope so. But I mean, I think
again, it's hard to build the trust, isn't it?
Yeah. Definitely.
Well, I mean, this is a good thing. You've said that, and I agree. And people listening will say this is fantastic. Long time coming. Are there gaps though still, Louise, that you see that you'd still like to see fixed?
In this legislation or in general?
Yeah, in this legislation. Or have they got
I
it
think
right?
I think they've got it right. Yeah, I'm not going to criticise it. I think they've got it right. There's definitely gaps in the justice system. Don't you worry. That's why we've made a comeback. Yeah. Watch this.
So, Minister Gold. Oh, sorry. Keep going.
No, that's okay. Go for it.
Oh, Minister Goldsmith has also come out. He's talked about the bigger picture, the bigger goal of reducing violent crime by 20,000 cases. I mean, that's a great thing to come out and say. I mean, how confident are you that that's a doable thing? The way the government's trajectory is going at the moment.
Well, I think big, hairy, audacious goals are a great thing. I'm a business person. It's great to have aspirations, but they've got to follow it up with action, and they've got to follow it up with bravery. And we had input into this 3 strikes legislation, which was our stuff. That was what we initiated. The Sensible Sentencing organisation were the ones that came up with that. Got it passed through, with the help of, obviously, with the government. And then Labor completely took it away. ACT brought it back and watered it down. So if you want this stuff to work, you've got to stay firm and be tough on crime. It's the only way.
What part?
I mean, of course, we've got to have
down,
all the
Louise?
other resources that we've already got. Pardon?
What part's watered down in the 3 strikes? Because I did talk to Nicole McKee about this.